dance out in the cold dark night. Screams echo loud, no wrong, no right. Rescue calls flash blood red sky. Spirits linger, waiting not to die. Ghosts on the line, they whisper and wail. Fingers reaching out, pale as they fail.
Welcome to The Thin Line, the podcast for first responders and veterans. We are so glad that you are here and excited that you could join us. The Thin Line podcast is rated explicit and viewer-listener discretion is advised. The views expressed on The Thin Line are unique to the speaker's personal experiences and circumstances and do not reflect the views of any specific broadcast media or platform or any specific agency. But for now, just relax, take a deep breath, and connect to this episode of The Thin Line.
Good evening, everybody. It's me, Missy Jessie, coming on here on The Thin Line. So we have a show in store for our listeners. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to tell everybody, thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing to our shows. This is amazing. We love you. Thank you so much. And I want to introduce my co-host, Crazy Girl.
It has been an evening. I'm Colleen, and yes, I'm a crazy girl, especially tonight. I couldn't get anything working around here, but we're online, and we're here with a dear friend of mine who I just love and adore, and Katy.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Katy.
And Katy was in the military, and you deployed, and we wanted to chat with you about first, like, what was like going to boot, and then you're like deploying, and you know, the females out there, that there's a lot of women in the military, but not nearly enough. I don't think so. It's very cool.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I would say like the ratio, at least when I was in, was about 10-1 is what I noticed. And that was something we were kind of like, you would see when, not to get too far ahead, I'll start at the beginning about like basic training before moving on, but I might just skip a little bit just to give you kind of an idea. When I was deployed, we had like a whole tent, and it'd probably be about 30 females, the rest of which you could probably fit maybe close to like 50 people in. And so we cut it in half. Higher leadership had more space, and then everybody that was like lower enlisted, lower leadership was just all crammed together like a box of cockroaches. So as you can see, that was still the same, but then all the men didn't have that luxury. They were all just kind of like butt to butt with each other. So I would say it was about a 10-1 ratio. So for one female, it was about 10 males, like difference.
And you were Army.
I was Army. Yeah, that's correct.
When you went into boot camp, because like we started with in the Navy, we started with about 110 or so females, and I think we graduated 40 to 50, somewhere in there. Is that about the same?
I would say that would be probably about the same. I actually have, I forgot to grab it. I don't want to like run away. I do have my basic training graduation pictures. And I would say for the amount of females, it was about maybe 40 females, 30, the rest were males. And it was just kind of like, you could see a huge disparity of different ratios between the two genders. And, but I will say my overall experience, I never felt like, me personally, because I was a female, I never felt like an outcast or like isolated or anything kind of like that. I always kind of felt like I was a part of the group and I was able to assimilate. However, I think you had to kind of have more flexibility, would be the word I would use, with certain things, because you're entering kind of a more male dominated environment. So something that may upset most people in a normal setting, like for females, between like jokes or inappropriate comments, depending on not anything out of context in terms of like of a sexual nature, but it would be, well, you would run into that too, but I didn't feel like it was like directed at me or anything in like a derogatory sense. It's just like, you know, like bathroom, like locker room talk.
It
So
is, and
we get a lot of that.
Like, we can't say anything like that now, right? We can't, at least in our workplaces, all three of us, right? But
No.
But you get used to just the shit talk that goes on 24/7.
Literally
Like,
shit talk.
it really is. It really is. And you're just like, well, it didn't. And no, I don't think anybody ever took offense to it. That there was no.
Yeah.
It was just that's. And I think the women were worse than the men.
Yeah, I have a few stories I have a very inappropriate story. I don't know, like what type of platform. I mean, how
Yeah,
far
we're
it
on
go.
YouTube, so we gotta have community.
Okay.
So
All right, I can edit certain things. But there was a story I would potentially maybe be able to share if I'm gonna have to like reiterate
edit it a little bit.
edit something so you don't get banned, but where I did say something, I ended up getting somebody in trouble, but they kind of ran with it. It wasn't really on me, technically, kind of it was, but we can get into that too. So, but that kind of made me think of something along the way there. But definitely there was kind of a lot of that going on. But I also think walking away from that type of environment too, it kind of helped me kind of have more of an open mind or flexibility where you're not so closed off in a box. And my experience, kind of like my origin, I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in a town, Mlad, Idaho, 4,000 people. We didn't even have a stoplight. My whole graduating class would have been 80 people, and that was huge for that town at that time. Most of the average graduation classes were maybe like 40 to 60 kids. So coming out of that environment, and then you were joining a big organization like the military, and you meeting people from all walks of life. So like if a lot of the listeners, if they're just out of kind of like just the western, southeastern side of like Idaho or like Midwest states, like everything is so like spread out, and you're not really getting exposed to a lot of diversity. You're not getting exposed to like urban culture. You're not getting exposed to a lot of different ideas, thoughts, or other people coming from all walks of life. So
just
that
sagebrush.
Yeah.
Dispersed sagebrush. That's what
sagebrush. Thank you.
Everywhere.
So for me, that was probably the biggest eye opener. It was like I came out of like the world into like this other environment. I was like, that was a culture shock for me, like a complete culture shock, because I came from a highly religious like town, like super conservative, and then it's like you got thrown in the mix of like a melting pot of like all these different people, possibilities, ideas, and it was a huge shock. But I don't think it was like, I wouldn't say a shock in a bad way. It really just kind of opened my eyes to the world, and I think that was probably the best part of the experience, like in the beginning of it. So that would be leading into like basic training. I remember I'd be in like the barracks with some of the females, and there'd be like girls just like cornrowing my hair, and I've never had cornrows before. And
awesome.
And it was
you
so
have hair? Wait a minute. The Army let you keep hair?
Yeah, I was able to keep my hair. I did cut it, but I mean, as long as I was able to put it in a bun and it could fit under my helmet or Kevlar helmet.
Oh my God.
It was
I am
fine.
so jealous. We had to cut. It was shorter than this. It was, and then they cut it that short.
Well,
like Holly did the G.I. Jane thing. That's what she did.
Sure did.
Oh wow. Well, now in the Army they approve ponytails, and for me, I wasn't sure when ponytails were allowed. And
that's so cush.
I was in Virginia, so I've been around some like different military communities, and I'm just seeing like Air Force folks, and they're just like girls with like ponytails, and it was just, for me, I wanted to say something. I was like, you can't have that, but then I remember they changed the standard, and it was just something different. So
I just touch her collar ever.
It went past the collar. It just couldn't go past mid back. Like there's a new regulation that came out in the Army. Now
it's called uniform for a reason.
Yeah. It is. I don't know. Like it was crazy. I don't know how I felt about it. I didn't know if I liked it or not. It was just kind of like a shock of like, oh, that changed. this is different. And that's something I didn't get to experience while I was in. I got out in 2012, but when I joined, I was 17, and I joined in about 2007. It was just like a little after like when 9/11 happened, quite a few years later. But when my deployment hit, it was like during kind of like the second wave of like Afghanistan started to go over there. I mean, like I was stationed in Kandahar, and we were there for about 12 months. Just to kind of give an overview, like I was there, like I was on the same base when like Bergdahl was there. He like walked off the base, and that like turned into a whole like situation. Yeah. Like that was a bunch of chaos during that time I was there. But yeah, it was like overall, like my overall impression of the military, I think, gave me a lot of good skills to carry through life, just to overcome a lot of adversity and like challenges that I faced like after, because I was so young. I was 17 years old. I turned 21 when I was in Afghanistan. I couldn't even like technically drink, but we did. We found ways, but like you couldn't technically, like on paper. And but yeah, so like for most people, like I remember spending my 21st birthday, I wasn't out at the bar. I was in a freaking MRAP truck driving down off base, and like I have a picture of it. This is kind of what it looked like. So we were driving this, and
that's so cool.
And so like that's what I was doing during my 21st birthday, where I guess most 21-year-olds are out at the bar just like getting hammered, you know. So yeah. But yeah.
Did you so I know that when you were over there, because Katie and I worked together for a few years, and when you were over there, you were telling me that was there like an IED or something like that blew up a truck or something right by you, or your truck, or what happened?
There was a couple of incidences. There was one that was a big one. So we were going to another installation. I'm trying to remember. We just left Logram and we were headed to Ghazni, and yeah, it was like it felt like it was just textbook like training. I mean, like there was a car that just like blocked off the road, and they were trying to move it, and then everybody stopped. They were able to move the car or this truck. I didn't see the truck because I was like kind of in the back, but this is like kind of like the chatter I remember hearing on the radio. And as we were going, like that's like when the truck got like it hit the IED, but it was just about maybe like 5 feet away. So it didn't hit it directly. And then there was also kind of like some contact in terms of like other fire. And then towards the end, I'm just kind of glossing over a lot of stuff, but like everything was kind of chaotic at that time. Luckily we didn't lose anybody, but I remember one of the other trucks that like one of the guys hit the gas pedal so hard it broke it, like trying to get out of there.
Wow.
You know, and when we got out of there, I remember, when it hit the IED, I remember the explosion. Like I could just like feel it, just like it was just like, you know, when you feel like the fireworks on the 4th of July, if it's too close, you can feel it hitting your body, kind of like the blowback of it. It was like that, but like a lot more intense. And I remember my ears were ringing, and it was a crazy situation. And the thing is, I don't even remember feeling scared. Like it was just like the training was like kicking in terms of like my position at that time where I was in the vehicles. I was the assistant gunner. So if the main gunner was going down, then I would have to like pop up if like he got shot and just like take his place. And so I was like feeding him ammunition and just kind of like relaying like the positions of what I could see, if there was anything coming out through some of the windows, as well as he was like taking from what he could see from up top. Okay. And then the driver was like driving us out, and then we had our truck, who was actually our convoy commander, was like in the truck with us, where he was also like kind of delegating like different instructions. But I remember when the IED hit, like I remember getting knocked out for a little bit. So I don't know how long was it, maybe like a minute, if that. I just remember just something kind of going black and then waking up and then just kind of like going back through and just kind of handing all the stuff. And then we got out of there, and it was so crazy. Like, I didn't even feel scared at the time. That didn't hit me until after we got to where we're going. Like, the whole time we were just joking about it, like with all the things that had happened. I remember when I was looking out through the window, like there were like some casualties you could see of like people that got hit as we were like getting out of there. And it just was like, I don't even know how to really describe that experience. Just, and I feel like I'm talking about it so like unemotionally.
You have to detach though, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, it's like a very matter of fact, like, oh, it was, and I think a lot of it is because I've done a lot of counseling because I've like talked about it so much that it's just like, I don't feel like I feel that emotion there either. But in terms of like the feelings, it was like kind of overwhelming, like towards the end when I got towards where we were headed. That's like when it hit me, and I remember I'm like, I could have died. And then that's like when the thought of death like hit my mind, where it's like, oh, I like, this could have been going a completely different way, and it didn't, luckily. And I mean, there was other incidences, but I'd say that was like one of the more closer ones that we were dealing with that I remember the most, just because of maybe that was like the first real big one. I mean, we dealt with other stuff that was like similar. I remember like when like our base got hit, and you could just feel like the door explode because we were kind of like, I'm trying like how to explain like how it was like set up. So like where we were at Kandahar, there's like different levels, and so they have like an outer perimeter, and then there's like an inner perimeter, and you had to like go through like a couple set of gates when you'd go in. And like that first outer gate was the one that got hit, and it was by a vehicle that was like packed full of explosives, and it vibrated. It was so loud, and it was just that however they had it packed, you could just feel it like resonate through the entire base. And it was just like, that was probably my first introduction, and that was like day 3 of getting there when that happened.
I bet you were sitting there like, I don't know if I want to be here now.
No.
So
Can I change my mind? Yeah.
I remember there'd be rocket attacks like in the middle of the night, and eventually you just got used to it. You're just like, you'd get more annoyed because like, oh, this is 2 a.m. I'm like, can't they do this during the day? I'm trying to sleep because I got off like a 12-hour shift. Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And then finally, you just, or at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, my attitude finally was like, well, if they're going to get me, they're going to get me. I just don't even care anymore. Like, it just, because you're just seeing it, and this is happening to you every day. It becomes so normalized for some of the things that like you would be experiencing. Like another example was we were doing some escort services for this other company that arrived, and that whole mission was like a mess. So the company that came in, they didn't follow any of the rules. So that I'm probably like telling my time, because I know when folks were rolling out in Iraq, they were rolling out with no armor on their vehicles. They didn't have air conditioning. That they had way less than what we had. And so I think those folks had it 10 times harder than we had it, because it was just like they were doing more with less. And when we were dealing with this company that we were supposed to escort, because they were doing a changeover, so they were supposed to relieve another unit at another base. And like it was like a hot mess from the beginning. Like, we inspected their trucks just to make sure all of their equipment was operable so we could get on the road and go, because they were also transporting like all these like trucks with them, because they're also like taking all of this other equipment. And come to find out, like halfway through, like after we leave the gate, I want to say we're maybe like 2 hours into this like drive. It's like an 8-hour drive to where we were going. A few, like I think 6 people fall out from heat exhaustion. So we had to call in a 9-line medevac to to extract them out. And come to find out, those trucks that I think there was like 3 of them that rolled out without air conditioning.
Ugh.
So this goes back to where people that did more with less, like policies and rules changed over time because of things that happened in the past, and come to find out after talking to their leadership at that time, their captain thought, oh, this was okay. They could just send it out because their trucks didn't have air conditioning. And so that is like a huge no-no. Like you would deadline a vehicle and it wouldn't be operable if it didn't have air conditioning. Just that was automatically like you couldn't even go out with it. And I remember getting stuck in this vehicle because we still had it extract. We couldn't leave the vehicle there. It was still operable. We're not just going to like, leave it on the side of the road. So I was lucky enough to get stuck in this record truck. And the one that didn't have AC, it had a little window. I think it was like maybe a 2x2 little window, like this big. And thick glass, like this thick. I opened it because it was just so freaking hot in there. And I remember the driver was like, he had been in country maybe like 2-3 weeks. I by that point I'd been there for like 6 months. And he was freaking out. He's like, don't open the window, they could shoot you, and I don't want to get shot at. I was like freaking out. And my whole attitude, we're going like 55, 65 miles an hour on the highway wherever we were headed. And I'm just like, I finally just yelled at him. I was like, you know what? If that guy can fucking if we get a sniper and they can fucking hit me going this high, like this fast down the road, it's a fucking like 120, 30 degrees in this place. We're wearing all this shit. They fucking deserve to take that shot. And I don't care. It's fucking hot in here. Like,
Yeah.
I was so mad. And just having to deal with this guy, like he was just.
Yeah, but you're which is awesome because you're a female and you stood up to him. You're
Right.
like, I don't
Yeah.
care what you say.
Like this is what we had to wear when we were driving. So not only were we were trained on all of the different roles. So the purpose for a lot of people that are non-military, like somebody could potentially die. So you need to know what everybody's job is. I was the gunner, I was the assistant gunner, I was the truck commander, I was also the driver. I did all of the roles, but also everyone else in my team also did all the roles too. We did everybody's job, because then if we weren't efficient in each other's roles, if God forbid something were to happen, then the whole team would fall apart. Like everybody's got to be able to pick it up if something were to happen.
Yeah.
So like this was my team.
Cool.
So as you can see.
Yep.
But so yeah.
So a question about that: when you had all those huge responsibilities, did you ever come across somebody who didn't like the fact that you were in those responsibilities?
No, I
as
never
far
did.
as like male or
No, I would say culture-wise with the locals, yes.
Yeah, that's the next question I was going to ask you.
Okay. Not so much on the military side. I mean, I think I was with a really good group of people. Everybody was just, most of them were clowns. They like to joke around. They'd be super inappropriate, which was fine.
Nothing new.
Nothing new there. Honestly, I like to joke. So they know, how they say like the Navy is like considered this that has the stereotype of being like gay. I sometimes think that might be more the Army, and I hate to say it like that because some of the stuff I've seen those guys do, I'm just saying here like, are you sure? Are you sure? Not that I'm saying that's not like whatever your preference is totally fine. But it's just like they would joke about stuff like just doing like weird things, and I'm just like, I don't get this. I don't get this at all. But again, not to like be super inappropriate about any of that. And again, whatever your preference is, like I have no like problem at all. It was just kind of funny because sometimes
the branches do that to each other, right?
Yeah,
like the Marines eat the crayons, and
right.
do that,
They like the blue color, just FYI.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be that was something I kind of noticed a lot of while I was there, when I'm like around all these guys. Like it was just kind of a different environment. So like if they found out it was somebody's birthday, they would make you run the gauntlet, is what they'd call it. So you'd have like, I don't know, 40 people lined up in a line, maybe 20 on each side, and you have to run through, and then they're punching you as hard as you can to run towards the end, you know. And
Yeah.
I mean, I never participated in that, and it was all in good fun. Nobody was like, you know, that nobody was forced to do this. It wasn't any kind of type of hazing, but like that was like the type of group, like we were kind of like, everybody was very close. Everybody, it was just like kind of like a family. And that's one thing I could say I missed a lot about that. It's just like you were always around somebody. You always had somebody with you at all times. And so when you come away from that environment, being around people so much, it just kind of felt lonely, because I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. And it was kind of a weird transition for living in that environment for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily for me, I wouldn't say I felt like the need that there was any kind of discrimination because of my gender. I did run into one situation. I don't know if it was considered discrimination. I just think it was just the person was just uneducated. But and I don't think it had anything to do with me or my like gender at all. But so one of the other jobs I did was we did escort security. So we would get a lot of like kind of the local Afghan drivers. They would come into the base. They offloaded kind of a lot of like military equipment, and these drivers, it was kind of crazy. So these drivers, we would have to put them in these cages. It like is the only way I could call them, but it was kind of like a cordon off area. And I'm not kind of like a dog kennel like cage or anything like that. It was just like it'd be like sectioned off like on a wire fence, and then some of those sections would have like broken down subsections. And part of that was the reason there would be a lot of infighting. So you would get a lot of different tribes that there's like, I don't know, like 20, 50 different tribes that live and reside in Afghanistan, as well as they get a lot of immigrants. So there's a lot of Pakistan nationals. And for whatever reason, the Pakistan nationals and the Afghan nationals never liked each other. They'd be fighting. So you'd be like breaking that up sometimes. And then sometimes there'd be infighting between the tribes. And so like that, I found that interesting. But I say that to say, so like just to give you kind of an idea of like this is why it was like set up the way it was. And I was talking to one of the gentlemen that kind of spoke very like broken English. He told me he hadn't been fed in 3 days. So usually you think when you offload your truck, you'd be able to be in and out within a few hours. You'd have people stuck there for days, sometimes weeks, because there'd be such an overflow of containers or things that were getting offloaded. Like the system wasn't very organized, and they'd have to come with like their own food blankets and everything. And in the beginning, it just wasn't really, honestly, I didn't feel like it was like really fit for people to even be living in. Like it wasn't really like like it had some shelters, and then eventually like the conditions had improved over time where they were able to get like mattresses and things like that, and like bathrooms. But before there weren't bathrooms. But because of all of that, I say to say, I was talking to this gentleman, and I found out he hadn't been given any food, and it was like almost like 2 days. And so I go to the lead. There was like a staff sergeant there, and I was a specialist. So like there's like a huge like difference in rank. And he was we got in an argument because he was saying, oh, he's trying to get one over on you and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I got into his face. I was like, no, this is not okay. These people haven't been fed. And you could just tell, like when you see somebody who is hungry and like how they're acting and stuff, like he looked dehydrated. And come to find out, like they weren't feeding these people like on time, or just like really just not really caring with what was going on. And it turned into like kind of like this pissing match. And he's like, well, because I was talking back to him and I was at a lower rank, he was like threatening like an Article 15, all this stuff. He was gonna like contact my command. I was like, go ahead and fucking do it. Please do. You know, and so I went and I talked to my command about like what was happening. come to find out, I guess there was like an investigation, and so it kind of led to an investigation later. I'm not going to say like I was the one that changed it. I think there was other complaints come to like after they kind of went through and saw how everything was being ran. So all those conditions eventually improved. That guy got removed that I found out later. Nothing happened to me. So those people weren't being fed. And I mean, really, it wasn't like fit for even my dog to sleep for where they were staying originally when I was first put on that detail. I got taken off that detail after that incident because I just was like, I can't, like, I don't want to deal with this person anymore. And then I got put back on the detail like a couple months later. And then I noticed there was like a lot of changes since that period of time. I think it was like a 3-month period. The last time I got rotated back into it, that it looked like it had improved. So I wouldn't say like that argument would stem from me being a female, but I would just say it's just like there's just certain things like I feel like if you need to stand up for if you see something that isn't right, regardless of like where you land on the totem pole. And that's like really hard within the military because questioning leadership, that could go one or two ways. Like I could have like gotten my ass handed to me over that just by even saying something. So luckily for me, that turned out in a positive outcome instead of a negative outcome. But yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, because there's a lot of people don't know that these people that you're talking about are like in the middle of this huge conflict. And it's super hard to, you know, people like over here in the States, all we see is the terrible stuff and all the fighting and all these people are bad. They're technically not bad people at all.
Well, and I mean, it's just a different culture. And that's something to me, I worked with somebody else that was kind of outside the unit and we were, again, doing like more of those escort stuff. So I saw, excuse me, sorry.
I have a big cat too, so it's okay. Your cat wanted to fill in a little bit.
Yeah. So one, how I approached this was we're in their country. It is their country, their culture, their beliefs, their law to a degree. Like all of that is theirs. For whatever reason, we're there. If that means to help support the economy, we're trying to help train their army. But ultimately, we are there as a support. We weren't there to dictate or to provide any kind of like authoritarian type of situation. And I would see people, they would get upset like over something. So like I remember I actually like worked with like another female from this other unit. And if there was like this old like 75-year-old like Afghani national who wouldn't even talk to her, like wouldn't acknowledge her, and she would get up, she got so upset over it. And the thing is that's their culture. They're not going to talk to you. I had to go and get a male counterpart to go and talk to him. And all we needed him to do was like move his truck down like 2 spots.
Yeah.
But like because they took it like a certain way because of where we come from, like, you know, like it was like a totally different culture. Like, you know, so I think when you're exposed to that type of environment, like it kind of gives you more of an open understanding of like other people live differently. Like these are people that lived in mud houses. They didn't have electricity. There was no running water. Before we got there, and like the Taliban was like basically running things. If a male relative died, that family would basically starve if they had no other male relatives because women over there can't work. They can't go to school. You know, and now it's starting to go back to that now. Like the whole 20 years that we were there, it almost got wiped away completely. And I don't know if a lot of people actually know, like Afghanistan used to be a pretty ahead of its time type country, like back in the 50s. It was like on par with what I would say Saudi Arabia is.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It was like Saudi.
You know, so and a lot of people don't know that, but when you go back there, it looks like that country got pulled back into time 200 years.
Wow.
Because of just like it's like a shell of like what it used to be, and that they're just like trying to sustain it. And it was just really different. It was just kind of thinking like if you gave caveman bombs, like that's kind of not that I'm insulting like anybody's intelligence or anything like that when I say that, but I'm just saying on the level of like superstition and how influential religion is over there. Like everything is just it's like a totally different mindset. Like I mean, I couldn't walk out, like I can't even work. I would be stuck at the home, taking care of kids. I couldn't go out to the market unless I had a male like escort. You know, like could you imagine here in America, women now living like that? Like, but there's people living like that right now at this very time as we are having this podcast, and that's like the most craziest thing to me. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
No, I mean
No.
it's true. People don't think about it. You mentioned that you did have a lot of like counseling when you came back for like PTSD and stuff like that. How long did it take you when you got home to figure out that maybe you needed a little bit of help with that?
Ooh,
Or was there a turning point? Was there an incident?
yeah, there was an incident. There was a turning point. Basically, my friends had to have an intervention with me, more or less, just with
Really?
a lot of different things. I don't know how much I want to like get too much into that.
No, you don't. No, you don't have.
But I will say I was acting outside my normal from what they noticed. I mean, it was just I was doing a lot of self-destructive behaviors, and they just didn't see me as that same person when I left, and it was just. And at first they're like, oh, maybe she's just blowing off steam and things are fine. But it's like, it wasn't blowing off steam. I think I was using certain things to like kind of self-medicate. Most of that time, and I don't mind sharing, like I was like drinking a lot at that first, like probably first 3 months. Not like where I'd say it was developed into an alcohol problem, but it could have. And most of it was just where I'd be out all night, like partying and hanging out with friends or, you know, I'm normally not an all-night person, as Colleen could tell you. I'm like, I want to be in bed by 9:30. You know, like I might
turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah, I turn into a pumpkin at 9:30. I may be a 1 or 2 glass wine girl, and I'm like done, and I'm ready to go to sleep. Like I just can't. But that wasn't where I was at that time, and so there were some other events that happened outside of just that, but eventually like I had a really good support system and a good group of friends that really were just like, you need to go get help, and if you're not going to go, we are going to drag you to the VA and make you go. Like that was kind of where they were at, and I'm really grateful for that point in time because I really don't know where I would be currently now, like with my life. Like I think I could have gone a completely different way. I really had no way of even realizing there was anything wrong. And that's what was crazy about it, is just, I didn't even think there was anything wrong at that time until like certain things kind of led up to an event. And then I was like, okay, there is a problem here. And
you went to the VA?
Yeah, I went to the VA.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool because I think that it's part of what we do here is to try to let people know there's no stigma for reaching out and getting help wherever that is. Whatever help you need, there should be no stigma to that.
Right. No, there shouldn't be. I mean, like, you know, I think I'll share this. Like, I don't know how many listeners and people that watch this is just regardless of like gender. I know men, I think sometimes have a harder time reaching out or asking for help. And I mean, for me, it was getting to the point where like I couldn't sleep at night. I was like jumping at every noise. I would get flashbacks of certain events of things that had happened. And sometimes it'd be so like those flashbacks would feel so powerful that I would literally see or relive of that. Like it was just like replaying like how I'm talking to you and I could see you. I could hear it. I could see it. I could smell it. It was almost like the reality of like where I was at was like distorted until like it like played out or I was able to like draw out of it. And some of those would just like snap for whatever reason. And that's like a terrifying experience. Because I mean, it's just, I don't even want to say if I call it like hallucinating. It's just I don't know if you're just like caught in a memory where you're just like so focused on whatever is going on in your brain at that time.
So you get
And
transferred into that time again.
yeah,
You know? Yeah.
and so I would say it's very important to get help. It led up to a time for me, and I will share this. Like I did try to at one point. I don't know if I ever told Colleen this. Maybe I did, maybe not. But it was, and I don't even want to call it. It was. I don't even want to say at that time that's like what I was thinking of doing. It was just more of I felt so overwhelmed with whatever I was feeling at that time. I just wanted it to stop. And luckily, like God had other plans for me on that. And that's when that's when I scared everybody at that time. That happened in 2011, I believe, around that time, because I was still trying to acclimate. Because I came home in 2010. So I wasn't even like barely a year home when everything kind of led up to where it led up to. And so I started to kind of like go to counseling. I think that's like when I started after that. I'm probably getting my timelines distorted because it was so long ago. Because I remember I was like trying to go, because I know with like the alcohol and the drinking, like my friends like, hey, go and talk to somebody. And then when that other event happened, that's like when they really pushed at that point. I really kind of took that was when I took it seriously after that, because I saw how much it scared everyone. And I didn't want to put any of my friends or family in that position ever again. I didn't realize at the time like how much I scared everyone. And even like my own father, like he came down to visit, and he never was the type. He was a very solemn, like carefree type person, and I've never seen him scared before, and that was like the first time I think I've ever saw him scared. And for me, that like really hit me more than anything, where I'm just like, okay, there's really like I need to do something about this, and it kind of made me realize I don't want this to control me. I want to be able to control it. And I think that was the turning point at that point for me. So, but and that's something I don't know if a lot of people really talk about. And it's really it's kind of a little bit embarrassing to talk about, but I feel if this helps anybody who's listening or watching this, like I really want you to go get help. Like you matter. We all matter. Everybody in this world makes some type of contribution, or you could like really impact somebody's life at any given point. I mean, that means whether if you go to the grocery store and you see someone's like having that bad day, and you go and you're like, hey, I'm going to help her with these groceries. Like there's an old lady or somebody who's just like overwhelmed, or you could just tell, you know? And so that to me is like where I kind of realized there was like more to life after that. And I think I was just so overwhelmed with my experiences that I just like I think I was just getting sucked into this deep hole. And I think that was like kind of the positive, like silver lining of that event. Not that I want to say it was a positive silver lining, but it just like for me that was like my aha moment, you know, like hey, I need to put that on my ass and like do something.
Yeah. How did you feel when you came home before this? How did you feel for one? And for two, how did you start trying to acclimate yourself to citizen life again?
I felt like there was like this wall between me and my friends or loved ones. I felt like I was looking through a window and you would see like, you know, that Hallmark family inside and you're outside and there's like snow or something. Like that's kind of how I felt when I first came home. Like it just felt so different. I had a lot of anger. I was like angry. I think part of it is like I would see people, like some of my friends would get upset over just trivial things. And in my head, I'm sitting here like still going in from you're trying to reacclimate from crisis mode because you're in this like high stress, high dangerous environment. And every day you don't know like today gonna be your last day, you know, because especially with the job that I did over there, we did a lot of convoy security. At that point, like at that period of time, the 88 Mike series, that's like the truck driver series, that was like what my job series designated in the military was. I was like told it was like a 50-50 survival rate, like at that time.
Wow.
So like you had about a 50-50 shot of like coming home. And I remember before we left, like this, I wasn't like really impressed with like our commander, but I remember he lined us all up and he's like, hey, everyone look to your right, look to your left. One of you may not be coming home. And I'm like, I don't know who the fuck says that shit, but that would be like a negative experience. I know I'm getting off topic from your question, but
Oh, you're good.
to kind of circle back to that, to give you context, it was interesting because like you're going from that mentality down to I enrolled in school like probably like that first summer. Let me see, I came back June of 2010. I enrolled in ISU August of 2010, like going to college immediately because I think I just wanted to forget. I wanted just to
keep your mind busy.
Just try to jump into it. And that was another thing, is just trying to be around people again. But then it was weird because at ISU they had a huge like foreign exchange student program where there was a lot of like students from Kuwait and like Saudi Arabia and all these other different like Middle Eastern countries. And I'm ashamed to say, like, for a while, like when I first got home, I felt uncomfortable. Like in my head, like I thought I was like, sometimes I would just, I don't know, it just made me relive or think of things over there. And but at the same time, like I wanted to force myself to acclimate to uncomfortable situations too. Not that I was ever uncomfortable when I went to college, but and it feels so stupid to say it like that. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm used to seeing these people like trying to shoot at me. And I'm like, okay, now you have like the same, they're not the same group of people, but like similar in like how it looks.
I don't think they're stupid at all, Katie. I mean, you just went through something really traumatic over there,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And but it bothered me. That's the thing, is that bothered me because that made me think, I'm like, does that make me racist? You know, and that's where I was like thinking in my head, and I'm like, I don't hate these people and I don't dislike them, but it's just like that feeling of when I came home, it made me feel uncomfortable. And that was something that didn't sit well with me either. So like working through a lot of that took a lot of time. And then what I did, I guess, to acclimate, to answer your second part of your question, was just I kind of tried to do like self-exposure to things that made me uncomfortable, because that's one of the things that my counselor told me to do. They're like, you have to expose yourself to things, and then eventually with it feeling uncomfortable, it's going to start to like normalize out. And eventually it did, but I'm going to say for me, it probably took me about 7 years, like over a huge period of time. It was like a lot of like therapy and counseling. And now I still go to counseling. I still maintain that, but only it's like maybe on a monthly basis or every couple of months. I feel like if I just need like a tune-up for something or whatever it is. And I mean, like anybody could go to counseling, just it may not have to be like war-related trauma. It could be any kind of trauma. So I really advocate, like for me, that was a big help for me. So I always like advocate that for everyone else too. I'm like, hey, just try this, you know. And you got to be true to yourself and really be open and honest with yourself for it to work. And you have to put in the work.
Yeah, that's really important, as counseling for sure. Because once you get on the other side of that shit, that's when you start healing.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I've seen huge change in Katy in the time that I've known her. I mean, huge change. And I know that has a lot to do with it. So just she's kind of remarkable in a lot of the changes that she's made, and she put in a lot of hard work. So yeah, it's really cool.
Thank you, Colleen. I love you.
I love you so much. Yeah. Gosh, this has been really remarkable discussion. I love hearing about all of this stuff, Katy, and a lot of the stuff I hadn't heard before. So thanks for sharing it.
Oh, of course. Well, you had me bust out all these old pictures, and I'm like, say her remembering things. I was like, oh yeah, like I don't know if this is really So this is like where we were living in such a small space. 6 people were living in that space.
Wow.
So you had like bunk beds, I would say, that were like behind me, and then right
Yeah.
over here, and then right here. And then just that little space, like that's how much we had to get dressed or get changed. And we were living like that for a year.
Yikes.
So
I don't-
go ahead.
I don't know how you guys did that. That's I don't
Probably
know.
remind you of the ship, wouldn't it?
I wasn't on a ship.
No? Oh.
No, I was a landlubber. I was an air traffic controller, so we were no.
You're
But
not probably.
so I get one of my other questions was like, what
Mhm.
you're constantly like working when you're over there, but what
Yes.
do you have like? What would you do on your off time if you had off time? What would you do?
I learned how to play Texas Hold'em and spades, so card games were a big thing.
So that means we're gonna get together and play Texas Hold'em. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, next time she's in town, we'll have to get together.
Dominoes, that was like another thing. And what was crazy is so I don't know how we had a guy who did like a lot of the radio stuff, and somehow he acquired the internet. I don't know how he found it, but somehow he managed to get the internet. And so we were able to, we did have Netflix and like computers and stuff. So we were able to watch movies, but then most of them were downloaded on like a ton of hard drives. So everybody was like always like swapping movies around. Like I remember I had probably like 2 terabyte of these like little hard drives that I still have them. And it had like all these TV shows on there. So, I mean, that was something I remember I used to carry, an iPod where I was able to download. I probably had like 100 gig iPod where I had movies on that too, where I could watch it.
And music.
Yeah, and music, and a lot of music. I mean, we were like jamming out, even like when we were like driving with our truck, we like attached a speaker to it. So then we'd be playing music, and you could hear the music, you know, just like kind of like inside and stuff. It was, I don't know, it was a good time. I don't want to call it carefree, but like kind of in a way, I feel nostalgic about it.
Right.
Just with like those simple moments, felt very carefree, because it was like either super intense or just really boring, and so you had to like find things to do, and I think that's like when I was like joking around, like guys doing like weird stuff about like acting like if they were gay or not. Like I think they just got so bored. It was kind of like sort of like that. But no, it was a good time. We did like we had a Halloween party where people were like dressing up. I remember like during the holidays. And then everyone kind of during the rainy season, then like the whole tent flooded. So like that was fun, and trying to like dig all that stuff out. That wasn't a great time. But we had a couple entertainers that came.
Cool.
I remember seeing one of my favorite musicians, like Flyleaf at the time. I don't know if she's still performing anymore. I got her autograph while I was there. I met Pitbull played, I think, while we were there.
Oh boy.
I don't know. It was so like they did do a lot of stuff for like the troops when there was downtime, and it was fun. And we did appreciate like all the celebrities that did come and like visit, you know, taking the time. For me, I think that just like made things even more fun. At one of the other trainings, this didn't happen when I was deployed. I actually met Rafter Man, and I have a picture of him and me. I think he just passed away recently. The one that like he played in Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, like it. Yeah. It was a good time, like when we did have downtime. But I think it also matters, like with the group of people you're with too. Yeah. Like you got to be with a fun group.
Yeah.
And I really had a great group that I was with. Like everybody was just so great, and very resourceful. Like, I don't know how they found half the stuff they found. They found some plywood. Somebody like created a shed out there and started doing tattoos. Like I don't know why. I didn't get one. But, and then they found like this netting, like created shade and everything. I don't know. They just, We called it acquiring instead of like stealing. But
Well,
what food did you try over there that was interesting to you? Did you try any of the culturistic food?
one, they kind of strongly discouraged it just because the sanitation of it. But they had this flatbread that was really good, and sometimes when we'd be stopped, we would be able to get some stuff. And then one day I saw how they made the bread, and I didn't eat it anymore. It was called foot bread.
foot bread. Oh,
Yeah.
They'd be stepping on it. At least I saw them like when they would like spread it out instead of using their hands, they were using their feet.
yeah.
And so
No.
I was like, all right, I'm not gonna eat that anymore. I didn't get sick, luckily. But yeah, so that flat bread, I called it foot bread.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. We appreciate your time, and
Yeah, of
this
course.
has been amazing. I just loved it, and I know our audience will as well.
Thank
and
you.
It's good to see you. You're one of my beautiful friends. So
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys so much. I don't know how much more time you have, but there was a picture I did want to share because you were talking about kind of what it looked like, but this was kind of
go.
to give you sort of like an idea. But then I do have some pictures where it was like dealing with like some recovery stuff.
Go right
Yeah.
into the center of your screen, where you're off to the side.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
dang.
Yeah.
so like when we
Okay.
were like recovering stuff, they either got like blown up. I mean, I got a lot of photos like that. Like this, you'd be like running into stuff like this all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but I mean, everybody luckily came home and we didn't lose anybody. I think it's because we had a really good group, a strong group of leaders. And I mean, I'm so grateful for them and everything that I like learned while I was over there. It was just such a great experience mixed with a lot of insanity. I mean, I always want to like impart, or gosh, I can't talk today. I'm sorry.
You did better than I am.
I just want everyone to know that no matter what I think you do in life, regardless of what your occupation is, it's just like there's always something to learn from an experience. And for me, this was an incredible experience. Like I will always be a soldier. Like kind of like when the Marines say they're a Marine no matter what. I feel like that I identify as that regardless, I think, however old I get. And I mean, just the fact to serve is a whole other feeling. Because when I originally joined, I did it for the college money. I didn't do it to be patriotic. That's what the recruiter like kind of brought me in for. But then later, after going through basic training and realizing like really what that meant to serve, and then serving in its actual capacity by like going over there and just kind of seeing how everyone lived, like it just made me feel so grateful of like our country and grateful of all of the freedoms and like just privileges we have here. And so I think that's something that we really just need to like just always remember. And it's like people like within the military, we wouldn't have these freedoms, you know, if people didn't serve, and we could be stuck. I don't want to ever see us like stuck in a situation where those people now are suffering back in Afghanistan where you don't have those freedoms. So anyway, but that's like kind of what I wanted to wrap up to kind of depart with a little bit. I was trying to see if I had there's like another picture I wanted to show you, but I can't for the life of me find it. And I do apologize, but oh, here's another one. This is kind of like some of the other, to give you like kind of the
There you go. Yeah.
the
I
inside.
bet those
like,
were so comfortable.
those were so great. So yeah, and these were like little tent cities we were living in for a whole year. It was like such a great time.
Looks like Southeast Idaho.
You want to see how
And
dusty? I know how
sagebrush.
much you love the dust, Colleen.
Oh God. You.
And then here's some burn pits if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
The toxic fun stuff there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say my favorite picture. There it is. Is this of the wheelbarrow?
Uh-huh.
The
Ingenuity.
Yeah.
ingenuity.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're very. Group I was with was very resourceful. And real quick, the story behind this was we were supposed to have like housing. This was on another base. We were escorting like supplies to, and they didn't have any place for us to stay. So they put us in a dump, and we found a wheelbarrow in the dump. So we like all our trucks out, put the cots out and stuff. So we slept outside. And at this time, I want to say it was probably about winter time when that was going on. And we light this wheelbarrow on fire. Come to find out, maybe not even an hour later, the Polish army roll up with their fire truck and put it out because apparently we were by the ammunition.
Oh.
Oh my God.
And but the funny part is the ammunition depot was like so far away. I want to say like a football field away, like from where we were. And so it was just the funniest thing. They come out with like their little fire hose and like start yelling at like our platoon leader about like us like trying to blow up the base and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, you guys didn't give us any housing. It's cold as balls outside.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We had to adapt.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's why this is a pretty fond memory for me, because like that's so like dumb shit like this, like you would see this all the time. But yeah, so to share that last little story.
It's awesome. Almost kind of like the person that leaves their cart clear over there.
It was. I didn't even know there was an ammunition like depot, because like you had the dump and you could see all the trash. There's all this like pile of shit everywhere, pallets of wood. We saw some Connex containers like way down there. Apparently that's their ammunition depot. So, anyway, but yeah.
And now you know.
Now you know. Yeah. But
well, thanks everybody for tuning into the show. We had the best time.
Good.
Yes.
Yep.
And again, like Jesse said when we started the show, thanks everybody for subscribing. And I think it was a ridiculous amount of stream hours. We hit 2,000 stream hours on YouTube in like 2 weeks. We got a notification and I couldn't even believe it. So it's just, you guys, much love to everybody watching all of our content. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And
it's crazy.
Katie,
thank you for having me. I've never done a podcast before, so hopefully I didn't make things too weird.
Yeah, you're right.
No. And again, thank you for your service. We appreciate everything you've done for this country.
Oh, no, thank you. And I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity just to kind of talk about like a few like stories, and hopefully if this does help anybody, like I said, if we have any vets on here, I'm going to like reiterate, just it's so important just to go and like talk to somebody. Even if you don't feel comfortable talking to the VA, if you've got somebody in your like support group or support network, family member, anyone, just pick up the phone, because you matter. You really do matter. And I don't know you. I may not have seen you, but I believe you matter. And if that's all that you need to know, because we do lose a lot of people due to like suicide, and it's a heavy subject. So yeah.
Thank you guys, and we will catch you all next week. Katie, stay here. Don't go anywhere. When we hit recording, we all get bounced off the stage. We'll bring you back on for a minute. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye,